I am just going to take a moment to express my opinion based on my observations of the geopolitical situation in the United States. I don't know how many people are actually paying attention to the things that are happening. I think the whole reason why we're in the situation that we're in right now as Americans is because of a lack of education, and that people just expect somebody else to take care of everything for them and don't want to pay attention to what's actually happening around them. So what I do know is that because of my personal situation, I feel like I caught on that there was something weird going on pretty early in the game. I think I'm likely to be making some phone calls today. But I'm very concerned about Russian interference and the failure of the United States federal government to act on such a matter. And for some reason, when I try to talk to people about this kind of stuff, it's like I'm speaking French or something. And that's not good, because it means that they're not paying attention and they don't know what's going on around them, and then I'm just over here on the lonely island watching all this fucking shit happen. So I've got this big ass report that I've written on the backlogs. If you want some dirt on the performance of the American government, that's what you need to be looking at through the course of the pandemic. And I do think that the pandemic made a open opportunity for things like corruption. Because from where I'm sitting, and I'm just expressing my opinion here, it appears that the pandemic was a great opportunity for multiple individuals across the United States within various government divisions to take advantage of the fact that nobody is paying attention to what is actually going on within the divisions. And I believe, this is my personal opinion, I believe it looks like from where I'm sitting with all the research I've done that there's been officials, people with access to government offices engaging in large-scale tax fraud in multiple states. But I think that this goes beyond local. And I don't know if anybody has watched the recent statements that Vladimir Putin made, like yesterday or whatever. But people are saying that it appears that he was possibly threatening Donald Trump with unaliving. This plant is kicking up some chalk. I'm just pruning things back. But what I'm paying attention to is that, like, multiple nations post-pandemic have seen, like, a bunch of right-wing extremists come out of the woodwork, including the United States. So that would include, you know, if anybody's paying attention and anybody actually remembers seeing any of this, the UK, you remember that whole thing where they were like, people were throwing a fit because the UK was threatening to arrest individuals for their political speeches, whatever they're talking about online a couple months ago. And then one of the head figures from the United Kingdom came online shortly after that and, like, notified the global population, like, can you please stop? We have right-wing extremists trying to take over our country right now. Pretty much That's me paraphrasing. Does anybody remember that? And then there was also Justin Trudeau, who came out and made statements that members of the Canadian government are going to be under investigation regarding right-wing extremism and potential fraud. Okay, so Canada, the United Kingdom. What other places have seen like a surge of right-wing extremism post-pandemic? That looks to me like somebody's trying to overthrow governments. The United States, obviously. So I'm just speculating and expressing my opinion. And looks to me like, if, theoretically speaking, if Vladimir Putin is attempting to overthrow nations, I believe that he is seeking out financial assets. I think that's the basis of his targets. But if this is what he is doing, then everybody's responding to it well, except for the United States. So if anybody's watching, you know, I made a recent post about what's happening in the country of Georgia. And they're saying, fuck you, Putin, right now, in my opinion. That is my perception of what is going on. It appears that the population has caught on to a potential coup attempt within their country. Putin is and currently has been attacking Ukraine. That's been going on for a while. We all know that. We're all aware of it. But as far as who has started any conflicts recently, it would be Russia. And then there's the United States, which... So what they found in Georgia, the country of Georgia, was dirty money in their politics coming from Russia. Okay. Now, Trump is refusing to let us know who's financing his campaign, first of all. I do personally feel that this whole MAGA thing has been on the back of right-wing extremism. So it's got similar hallmarks to stuff that's been happening in other countries. So, I mean, these people out east on the other side of the planet, they're more used to dealing with this kind of crap. And this kind of crap is happening in their countries, and they're just like, nah, dude, screw you, you're dumb. And getting on with their lives. But my opinion is, my personal opinion, to me, it appears that, you know, Americans are just lapping up Russian propaganda. Like, if there's an attempt to overthrow the United States and its government right now, Americans are just, like, willingly participating and celebrating such attempts. And I don't think that's a good thing. But I do think that, like, now, like, I've been wondering what is going on with all these right-wing extremist groups popping up in all these other countries over the past couple years, trying to take over, and then we see it happening here. And I've been wondering who's behind it, and I think now we know. That is my opinion. I believe that now that Putin is choosing to expose himself for what he's been doing. So I think he's making attempts to try and grab up on multiple countries, and some of the countries are just telling him to fuck off, and he's leaving, and the United States is just like, come right on in. That is my opinion. That is how this appears to me. Another thing I've been paying attention to is all these domestic attacks that have been taking place. Bridges have been hit multiple times. Donald Trump, I believe that whoever's behind this weird right-wing extremism, and I personally blame Donald Trump because he says a lot of hateful things and has been acting very strange. So I'm expressing my opinion. I believe that these things like the Hells Angels are coming to Colorado to deal with the immigrants. And the Haitians are eating the dogs and they're eating the cats. I personally feel that has been spread by Donald Trump and his campaign and by right-wing extremists. And anti-immigrant propaganda has been part of what we've been seeing globally take place with these attempts to interfere with government systems apparently across the globe. So, I mean, what's happening here in America right now has all the same hallmarks of what's been taking place in different countries. The only difference is that the Americans are allowing it to happen. Everybody else is just like, nah, screw you guys. I think that very strange things are happening in Florida because, like, it appears to me that the governor of Florida, as well as the governor of Texas, have been acting very strangely and in a way that is very apparent that they don't have the best interests of their population and the American people in mind. And I'm paying attention to the fact that Netanyahu has a relative in Florida. Bolsonaro, after he did what he did in Brazil, went straight to Florida at the end of his term. And Mar-a-Lago is also in Florida. There just seems to be really strange, questionable things that are happening in Florida. And then as you can see by my recent posts, there was recently an explosion in Florida. Now with this whole anti-immigrant and like efforts to attack individual states, I mean, we're all paying attention to this Project 2025 thing, right? Obviously, in my opinion, it is obvious to see that there are certain governors' offices, definitely a large amount of Congress members who appear to be participating in endeavors that may possibly be associated with an attempted coup on the United States. This is my opinion. We just saw an explosion go off in Florida. And there's been other similar, what appears to me to be attacks that have been taking place that for some reason have not been getting acknowledged as what they are. There's a pattern of behavior. So they tried to come to Colorado and point the finger at the immigrants. I just let them know, like, look, you're going to be surrounded by military bases if you come here. And then, like, a day later, they're going after that other state, saying that the Haitians are eating the dogs and they're eating the cats. And then the civilian population wasn't putting up with it because we already just witnessed this similar behavior and there was two things around that period of time that happened, which would be a chemical plant explosion and then also a train full of flammable gas that spilled over in that state where the Haitians were supposedly eating dogs and cats, according to Republicans. So, what I see from where I'm sitting, it appears that there's been a multitude of dangerous attacks that have been happening with like crashing into bridges and blowing things up. I think the assassination attempts are very questionable. I personally believe that they're being staged in an attempt to make people feel sorry for someone who is engaging in criminal acts on behalf of another country. That is my personal opinion. It doesn't mean I'm right. It's just what I think might be happening. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that if Russia, hypothetically speaking, has been attempting to engage in seizing what he may perceive, Vladimir Putin may perceive as financial assets across the globe by seizing nations, and it appears that he has used right-wing extremism as a propaganda campaign in multiple nations, taking advantage of the vulnerabilities caused by the pandemic. And most countries are telling these people to fuck off. And the Americans are celebrating it. President Biden's advisor is one of Netanyahu's relatives. And I do not believe that the situation involving Israel and Palestine makes the United States look good at all. However, I do want to point out that that bill was initially written and passed by a Republican Congress. And I would like to express that I condemn the president's actions in choosing to sign that bill. And I think that now that the United States, or not the United States, but now that Palestine is part of the United Nations, if the United States continues to endorse actions of severe violence against civilians in Palestine, that there's a good chance that the United States may be engaging in crimes that it could be held accountable for in attacking allies. So I can't say that I support what President Biden's been doing, and I will say that I'm quite alarmed that if this whole Trump campaign thing has been an effort to overthrow the United States with the participation of Russians in the interest of Vladimir Putin, that I'm very concerned at the lack of appropriate and effective federal response to such a matter. I think that what they need to do is address the public. But I believe that there's a very good chance, and I'm just expressing my opinion based on what I'm observing, that if the United States continues to go in the direction that it's going, there may be a need for international intervention. I'm upset that I'm the only one that seems to see these things playing out. It bothers me. People are not paying attention. But that's where my concerns are right now, is possible NATO intervention in the United States. Because from where I'm sitting, American conservatives appear to be just lapping up Russian propaganda and not recognizing it for what it is. And since the Biden administration has chosen to engage in these acts of war against Palestine by funding Israel in the manner in which it has chosen to fund Israel, that personally makes me question the integrity of our executive office, which resultantly makes me question the security of the nation right now as to why it is that we're not seeing a better effort be made to prevent acts of espionage within the United States. And all of this is just my opinion. I'm just watching things play out on the world stage, and that's what I personally think about these things that I have been observing, and I feel the need to express that. I think it would be wise for the United States to start speaking with its allies about these right-wing extremist movements that suddenly popped up in these multiple nations. So I'm going to be making some phone calls, I think. But I really question the integrity of our entire governmental system if we're even being involved in these attacks on Palestine. And that causes me as an American civilian to be concerned about my safety. And that's just my opinion and how I feel and what I think.